the band kept getting more and more popular, but my voice kept getting worse and worse there at the end. And right kind of at the pinnacle of our success, we're like, this can't go on.
It's time for another episode of the Shaun Tabatt Show, a podcast where I connect you with thought leaders from across the globe, digging into some of my favorite topics like personal development, marketing, spirituality, and pretty much any other shiny object that happens to catch my attention. Today, my special guest is Mark Stuart, and we're going to be discussing his book, Losing My Voice to Find It, How a Rock Star Discovered His Greatest Purpose. Mark, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
You know, it was kind of funny, Mark, as I was preparing for the interview, I normally ask the author to, hey, share a bit of your origin story, but like myself, I know most of my listeners grew up listening to your music, so I thought I'd warm us up with a few random questions instead. So to get us started, coffee or tea, Mark, which do you prefer more?
Well, I wish I was a tea person, but I'm a coffee guy. I know tea is more healthy, but I just love coffee.
I'm with you.
And the stronger, the better. Yeah.
I'm 100% a coffee guy. I always feel like tea is maybe more distinguished or refined, but I got to go with coffee as well.
Yeah, it's tough to give it up.
Yeah.
I like coffee.
Do you have a favorite go-to candy or snack food? For me, that's gummy bears. If you could have any snack, what would that be for you?
Are you seriously going to ask me that?
I know.
My wife's going to hear this. It's not good. No, my absolute favorite is just a classic Snickers. I turn into a diva if I don't have one, every couple of days. So definitely a Snickers is my go-to candy.
I think that just proves that what they show in the commercials is absolutely true. You totally need that to
it is
be
true.
in the zone.
It is true. It's a good combination of protein, and milk. So it's a healthy snack.
Yeah, it's a lot of happiness in one small wrapper there.
Yeah.
One thing I'm always curious about, whether I'm talking to artists of any kind, like for you as a musician, who was your biggest musical inspiration? Either growing up or later as your career took off more? Who were some of the people that really inspired you?
I would say early on, my dad was a big inspiration. He was a gospel, like a Southern gospel singer and a piano player and could just do anything musically, play any instrument. So he was a big influence early on. And then, later in life, I kind of like standards, like old school music, but I got to meet Harry Connick Jr. He's not really that much older than me. I think he's probably my age, but at a Tim Tebow fundraiser event, and I freaked out. So he's not really an influence, but I'm just a big fan of Harry Connick and what he can do in terms of playing piano, his voice, and writing music. I think he's brilliant. That's probably not even what you're looking for, but that's all I got. Harry Connick Jr. and my dad.
That's perfect. That's what's kind of fun about asking sort of random one-off questions. You have no idea where the guest is going to go. So I hope some of the listeners hear and learn things they've never heard from you before. How about, since I'm a book guy, favorite book or author?
That was pretty easy. I'm a big fan of the late Brennan Manning. I just think his books and his teachings are incredible.
I thought long and hard about this last one, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Favorite Audio Adrenaline song or album? And I know it's like asking which one of your kids you like more, but is there either an album or a particular song that sticks out the most to you?
Yeah, for me, I think our best record, our best album is Lift, from top to bottom. That's our best one, and I think the best overall song, and it's my favorite, I love the message, love the melody, is Ocean Floor. I think that's my favorite song.
Mark, thanks for helping me to get our conversation warmed up. Now let's actually jump into the book, which is what we're here to talk about today. As a guy who works behind the scenes in the publishing industry in a lot of ways, I'm always curious how a book project gets started. So would love to hear a little bit about how you got moving down the path of writing what would eventually be called Losing My Voice, and why was this the right season of life for this book to, so to speak, come to life? Because I feel like there's always a timeliness and there's a point where as an author, as a creator, you're finally ready to share a story. And so how'd that journey for the book get started, and why was now the right time for this book to come out?
Yeah, great question. This is a memoir. It's a testimony. It's a story of my life. I was never really inclined to write a story about me, like a testimony or a memoir. But one of my best friends, his name's Roger Thompson. He co-wrote the book with me. He's an author. He's had several books, that are really cool. He's also a script writer. And he was working with me as a kind of a creative consultant on what we were doing with the Hands and Feet Project in Haiti. So after audio, I was working pretty much full-time in Haiti, developing job creation initiatives and an orphan care program for kids that have lost everything. He was working with me. He's like, your story is pretty amazing. It would make an incredible book for people. It'd be really encouraging for people that have gone through loss or transition or have lost a dream. It would be great for them to read this book or read your story. And he kind of kept talking to me about it. I'm like, yeah, that'd be cool, but I don't have time. And then eventually I was like, you know what, let's do it. I was the executive director of the Hands and Feet Project after Audio Adrenaline for 8 years working in Haiti. It was time for me. God kind of put it on my heart to just take a couple years and just settle down and just kind of focus on my family and my wife and my marriage. And during that 2-year time, we rented our house out and we bought an RV. And for the last 2 years, we've lived on the road in an RV. And I've worked on this book with my friend Roger. He wasn't in the RV with us, but we would talk on the phone and do interviews, and I would spend time in California, is where he lives. It all kind of came together. It was the perfect timing. I actually had something to say and had a story arc that felt complete, or at least, as complete as it could be to make a good story. And that's kind of how that book came to fruition. It was through Roger and good timing.
A follow-up question to that, you said you've spent the last 2 years traveling with your family in an RV. As somebody who spent a ton of time on the road, do you just feel really at home on the road at this point? Does it feel like a very normal way to live?
Yeah, I definitely have a bit of wanderlust. So I like to travel. My parents were missionaries. And, I wanted my kids to experience a little bit of the life that I experienced when I was in Audio Adrenaline. So we did a lot of touring. And really, we went in the RV and stopped at some of my favorite places that we got to kind of experience together as a band. I took Aegis, my wife, and my kids on that same kind of journey. It's a great thing to be out on the road. It's difficult. It's not comfortable sometimes. We're crowded. We're in a little space. But investing in your family, if you have the chance to do that, it's an incredible opportunity just to pour into those family relationships. But yeah, I love being on the road and wanted them to share that with me.
I love that story you just shared because, in a sense, you were able to share with them sort of the milestones, some of the markers along the way of your journey with Audio Adrenaline. That's really cool. They won't forget that.
It was definitely cool. I'm so glad I did it. It was a great investment into our family. And a book came out of it, so that was cool, too.
Even better. Even better. I'd love next to have you give us some perspective on the journey of some of the difficulties, the problems you face with your voice. Like for me, as somebody who's familiar with the entire body of your work and been following Audio Adrenaline for many years, I didn't realize how early on you started facing challenges and problems with your voice. Talk to us a bit about that journey and how that played out during your career. I was kind of surprised.
I started having vocal trouble in about 1994, 95. So our first record came out in 91. So it was on our third record. I lost my voice basically at a concert in Nashville. And it completely shut down. I couldn't even speak at all. And then my journey kind of started into this. My voice kind of became raspy and rough. I would take steroid shots. If you read the book, you're going to discover this. I know you've read it. So I would take steroid shots from a doctor here in town. And steroids would take the swelling down in my vocal cords. It also kind of created this neurological damage or neurological, happenstance to where my muscle spasms around my voice would start to trigger and kind of make my voice shut down. I didn't understand what was happening through this period, but it was about an 8-year period where I struggled on and off with my voice. I would get steroid shots and then I sounded really good, or I could, my voice took on this kind of Rod Stewart, kind of raspy, emotional thing, and it actually made us a better band. My original voice wasn't really that good. I was started off as a drummer. But once I started to get this character to my voice, this brokenness, it became more powerful. But then eventually it kept going down, and the raspiness turned into brokenness, and I couldn't hit notes, and eventually I really couldn't sing at all. That was kind of the vocal journey that I was on. And the frustrating part was I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know how to fix it. It is incurable. I have a voice disorder called spasmodic dysphonia, where my muscles spasm, and if I try to project, it shuts my vocal cords down. The issue was the more popular we got, the band kept getting more and more popular, but my voice kept getting worse and worse there at the end. And right kind of at the pinnacle of our success, we're like, this can't go on. Tyler had to start singing more and took on some of the vocal heavy lifting, especially on the melodic, beautiful pieces. And I would sing the broken pieces. And for a while, it was kind of studio magic because we were singing about, like, Ocean Floor was this, I sing the verses about the mistakes I've made that's caused pain I could have done without. I sing the broken part. And then Tyler would sing, but your sins are forgotten there on the bottom of the ocean floor. He would sing this beautiful, pristine chorus. And together, for a while, we made really good music. And then eventually, it just got to the point where I couldn't sing at all. And the band was like, it's time to shut this down. We could have had a new lead singer or replace me, but the guys were like, hey, we don't want to go on. It was a good run. Let's just say goodbye at the top. And that's kind of what Audio Adrenaline did.
Next, let's transition into, if I remember correctly, this was like maybe 2/3 of the way through the book. It was this heavy part where you talk about, being up on stage and you're preaching, you're trying to give hope and encouragement to people. Yet, in essence, your life was falling apart. Would love to have you just give us your thoughts on when it comes to how we can be supportive of and praying for and encouraging, whether they're pastors or artists, people that we see on a stage. We often put them on a pedestal and assume that their lives are just perfection. And I think that's kind of a false standard that we try to place on people. So talk about your experience with that and how can we be more honest with ourselves and how can we be just supportive and encouraging to the people who we put up on these pedestals, so to speak.
There was a time for me when I lost faith, not in God and his existence, and not in Jesus, and not in his forgiveness and his grace over me. I still believe that, but I just didn't believe that God had good things for me. I was like, okay, I'm going to be kind of punished, and I'm going to be broken my whole life. I just kind of took this on like, well, I could encourage other people that God's got good things for you, that he's trustworthy, he's a good father. But inside, I was like, well, I think that's for other people, not for me, because at that time, my voice was going away. My marriage was also going away. My wife had filed for divorce, and I was trying to hold that together, and I couldn't hold that together. Everything I tried to keep together and everything I tried to control was being, in essence, ripped away. So from the stage, I would walk out literally in depression sometimes, and just like, there were moments on stage where I would sing Ocean Floor, and it was so gut level honest. Like, I would just weep on stage, and not just from, I don't know, the beauty of God, but sometimes just the sadness that I carried and the beauty of God. And a lot of people, I do think, tend to like their people in pulpits and on stages to be perfect because it's something to, I guess, aspire to, or they become heroic, or they replace people and replace Jesus with these iconic figures or whatever. But man, the people on stage get attacked just like everybody else does. And we go through the same faith challenges and the same struggles that everybody else does, for sure. For me, I was afraid to even unveil what I was thinking or unveil my struggle in my marriage because I thought people would just crucify me and be like, well, you can't even have this platform anymore. So I didn't really talk about it. But I think for a lot of us, if we shared our struggles more and became more vulnerable, I think God's grace and our stories sharing back and forth would be so much more encouraging to each other if we just got more real. And honestly, I feel like over the past 10 or 15 years, that's become more normal than it was in the 90s when I was doing music, or in the early 2000s. And, we sang a lot about our failures and our brokenness just because we couldn't take walking on stage being hypocritical. It was gut-wrenching. But I think now people are sharing more about their true feelings and what they're struggling with more than ever. And I really like that because it just takes that power of shame away from the enemy. And it says, hey, we're not ashamed of this. We're going to talk about it. And I think that's important.
Another part of the book that I thought was particularly beautiful, I think this, if I remember correctly, it was around Christmas time. You were worried that your Bronco wouldn't start. You turn the car on, an Audio Adrenaline song comes on, and you share how the Father spoke to your heart. And I felt like that was a moment where, at least with how you describe it in the book, it sounded like an identity shift began to happen for you. Would love to have you share a little bit about that with the listeners. It was beautiful.
Yeah, that was the day after we were on the Adios tour. We were saying goodbye to our fans. We had already determined and made our last record. And we were already, just filled with kind of sadness. It was like the end of an era for us in that. I feel like I let everybody down. Basically, my marriage was done, waiting for the final paperwork. My wife had packed up a U-Haul, and I'd actually packed it up with a friend of mine with all this furniture on this house that I had renovated to save our marriage. We had no kids, and I watched her drive away that night. It was in between two legs of a Mercy Me tour, and it was ice cold, I remember. And I fell asleep on a wooden floor. I didn't have a bed. I woke up the next morning, and I'd cried myself to sleep, which is the first time I'd ever done that. And this was the moment where I literally just kind of came to the conclusion that, like I said earlier, that God's goodness was not for me. That I was inclined to live a life of kind of martyrdom, I guess, just for lack of a better term. And I'm just like, are you even here, God? Are you just a distant God that set up salvation through Jesus, but you really don't care about me at all? I need you now. And I remember waking up in the morning, it was ice cold in the backyard. I looked out this old Bronco. We had another car that was more new, and I had this older car, Bronco, and it hadn't been starting. And I walked out, it was icy. I kind of pried the door open, sat inside the cab of this Bronco. There's ice all over the windows. I was like, God, I put the key in the ignition. I said, I need to know you're here right now. Just start this old Bronco. And just let me know you're here. And I turned the key, and music came on in the cab. And I immediately knew what it was. It was a song I'd written 7 years ago, or prior to that, a song called The Good Life for a friend of mine who just went through a divorce. He'd lost everything. The premise of the song is, you're never closer to Jesus than when you've lost everything that you thought you needed, or that you thought you wanted. That song came on the radio. It hadn't been on the radio for 7 years. And the moment I asked God to start my truck, he romantically, intentionally put that song on the radio locally in Nashville. And I literally thought Will, our bass player, put a CD in and queued it right up because it was that perfect. Timing, the perfect message for me, the perfect moment, the perfect thing that I was going through my heart because I was like, my ministry was worthless, my marriage is broken. God, you're not even here for me. You're definitely not good. And all of a sudden, God said, I knew, Mark, that you were going to go through this. All right? I knew in this moment what you would need. And I even had you write this song for your friend. I had you write it for him. But just as importantly, I had you write that song for this moment. And there's not a moment, Mark, that you've lived where I've not been your dad. I've been in control the whole time. And he said, I've got you in the middle of this brokenness, in the middle of your despair. I am here. I've never felt like that before. My whole body was like warmed up in temperature. It was like vibration almost through my whole body. And I felt like I was being reborn again. It's nothing that I said. It's not like a bootstrap pulling them out, hey, I did this and I got myself out of the funk of life. It's just God said, hey, I'm going to remind you in this moment how much I love you. And from that moment on, I started walking in a more awareness of my true identity, which is that my dad runs the universe and I have to live my life like that. And we had a great ministry with Audio Adrenaline. We encouraged a lot of people in the Lord. We brought a lot of people to Jesus. But I wasn't fully aware, even then, of God's bigness in my life until that moment in the Bronco when I lost everything. This book, Losing My Voice to Find It, it's not really just about my voice. It's about losing control of everything and surrendering to the real author of our lives, who is good. You just have to trust them. And that's what I found out that morning in the Bronco.
Well, Mark, we're in the home stretch here. It's almost time for us to wrap up, but I would love to have you share a little bit about the country of Haiti, because just in reading the book, it seems like Haiti's meant different things and been a part of your life throughout different seasons. So would love to just hear a bit about how Haiti has been such a meaningful place to you through the years, and would love to also hear about some of the ministry and work you've done there.
The back probably 10% of the book is after the Bronco, is about God rebuilding my life. I got married to a wonderful girl named Aegis, and we've been married almost 12 years. We adopted 2 kids from Haiti. They're beautiful, Crystal and Journey. And my voice, my kids, and that pushed back into Haiti. And I was escaping into Haiti just to kind of find solace, and a respite from what I'd lost. But Haiti, God used Haiti really to give me my voice back. And I can't sing. I can barely talk. But I've become a voice for that country and for specifically children in crisis in Haiti. And now even kids around the world. But Haiti, I was a missionary kid growing up. I fell in love with Haiti at an early age. As I look back now, I'm 51. Our biggest song, the reason we even have a career, was a song called Big House. It's a children's song. Some people call it, it's goofy, but there's a profound meaning to it. Everybody needs a family. Everybody wants a dad. Everybody wants to belong in a family, and that's what the beauty of that song is. But it came from my time in Haiti when I was young, that these kids would sing about, Est-ce que vous voulez aller là qu'à papa moi? Come and go. Do you want to go to my father's house? There's joy, joy, joy. And I wasn't too young at an early age to pick up on the irony. Here's kids with nothing, barely a roof over their head, living in a shack and dirt floors, and often their dads weren't even present, singing about their hope in their Heavenly Father. And that became kind of the genesis of the Big House. And I didn't think about it back then, but when we look back at our whole career now, and Will and I, he's our bass player, we work continuously and we'll probably for the rest of our lives to make Haiti a better place for families. We believe that God downloaded that song from Haitian children to give us a career, just to come full circle, to use our platform to come back to fighting for kids in Haiti. And that's kind of the full circle of how God gave me my voice back. He gave me a voice in the first place. It was a gift to sing and to have a platform. And he said, all right, I'm going to give you this. And then ultimately, I'm going to take it away from you. And it's going to be rebirthed even more significantly for you to focus on kids in Haiti, because that's what I want you to do with your life. It's just powerful when we look at our stories and our testimonies, the goodness and the romantic kind of commitment that God has in our individual stories. And I would just challenge your listeners to stop and think about where God has impacted you and write those things down and communicate those to others, because in that, there's power in those testimonies.
Well, Mark, thank you so much just for taking the time to share with us today. We barely scratched the surface. The book goes into a lot of detail. If you are a fan of Audio Adrenaline, there's going to be a lot for you to enjoy throughout this book. If you are looking for an inspirational story, just to see how God can fully redeem and restore something that seemed completely broken and hopeless, yet, as you've heard Mark share, he's come out on the other side, and God had an even greater work for him to do on the other side of Audio Adrenaline. Mark, for the listeners who want to find out more about your ministry, who want to find out more about the book, where are some of the places we can connect with you online?
You can connect on Mark Stuart Media, markstuartmedia.com. And from there, you can visit the Hands and Feet Project, which is our ministry in Haiti, serving children in crisis, orphan and abandoned children and moms, trying to fight for family preservation. You can also go from there to some of our other projects like Haiti Made, which is a job creation initiative. But you can start at Mark Stuart, that's with a U, Stuart, media.com. And you can buy the book there too, yeah.
And like we do with every episode, we'll include detailed links in the show notes, places where you can connect with Mark and pick up a copy of the book as well. It's time to bring this episode of the Shaun Tabatt Show to a close. Many thanks for being a part of my conversation with Mark Stuart. Once again, our book today was Losing My Voice to Find It, How a Rock Star Discovered His Greatest Purpose. For more on Mark and the book, a great place to start is his website. Once again, you can find that over at markstuartmedia.com. And Mark, I just want to say thanks so much for sharing with us today. It's been a great pleasure and truly an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you, Shaun. I appreciate the time. Thanks so much.